In this program, we're going to look at nutrients, not just what they are and why we need them, but more specifically, how they interact or work with each other to perform the necessary functions in our body to keep us healthy. We can divide nutrients into 6 main groups: proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, commonly known as fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. There are many different vitamins and minerals. However, in this video, we are going to be looking specifically at the role of vitamins A, B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, and folate, vitamins C and D, and the minerals iron, calcium, phosphorus, fluoride, iodine, and sodium. We need nutrients for the production of energy, for growth, repair, and maintenance of hard and soft tissue, and for regulation of the body's processes. But no single nutrient can carry out these processes alone. They need the presence of other nutrients to help perform their functions. Let's have a look at the role nutrients play in energy production. Energy is the force or power that makes it possible for our bodies to function. In our bodies, energy is needed for basal metabolic activity, physical activity, and for the digestion, absorption, and metabolism of food. The basal metabolic rate is the minimum energy needed to sustain life in a resting individual. This is the amount of energy our body would burn if we slept all day and night, just maintaining nerve activity, heart, lung, and kidney function and body temperature. The basal metabolic rate is different for everyone because it's determined by a number of factors, such as age, height, gender, growth, body composition, and environmental temperature. We need energy for physical activity to power every aspect of movement, from the brain's work coordinating and responding to stimuli to the movement of every muscle. Naturally, the amount of energy we use varies between individuals and the type of physical activity we are doing. Finally, the work of extracting energy from food also needs energy. In fact, approximately 10% of the energy we consume will be used just to digest, absorb, transport, and store the food we eat. Almost all of our energy comes from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. We find carbohydrates in almost every food source. Complex carbohydrates come in cereals, grains, vegetables, rice, pasta, fruits, and dairy products, and simple carbohydrates in sugar, syrups, and drinks. Each gram of carbohydrate we eat provides about 4 calories of energy. Every gram of fat yields more than twice the energy of carbohydrate, but because often the foods that contain carbohydrates also contain vitamins, minerals, and fiber, carbohydrates are the body's preferred energy source and provide most of the energy in our diets. Protein, found in meat and nuts, is also able to provide us with similar amounts of energy to carbohydrates, but it is converted to energy only when other sources are no longer available. Alcohol, although definitely not a nutrient, is also a notable energy source. But in a healthy diet, the amount of alcohol we consume should not provide us with much of our energy. So what are the recommended ratios of energy sources? Health authorities generally recommend that 40 to 45% of our energy intake should come from complex carbohydrates, with only 15% coming from sugars or simple carbohydrates. So in total, about 55% of our energy intake should come from carbohydrates. The balance should come from fats and protein. However, the reality is that too many of us are eating too little complex carbohydrates, such as breads, cereals, fruit, and vegetables, and too much fat from foods such as butter, cheese, cookies, chocolate, processed meats, and oils, which means we're probably consuming more energy than we need. It's important to remember that whatever energy the body doesn't need gets converted and stored as body fat. And too much body fat can lead to significant health problems. Converting carbohydrates, fats, and proteins to energy also relies on the interaction of nutrients. For example, vitamins B1, B2, B3, and B6 are essential parts of coenzymes. A coenzyme is a small molecule that works with an enzyme to promote the enzyme's activity that regulates the process of energy release from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Without the involvement of these B vitamins, the body's cells may not get the energy they require. The mineral iodine is an essential part of the hormone thyroxine that regulates the body's metabolic rate. The higher the metabolic rate, the greater the energy requirements. And of course, water is also essential because all chemical reactions occur in water-based solutions. So for our bodies to produce energy, we need to eat more than just carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. That would be like trying to heat a room with just plain gas. A few more bits and pieces are needed. To produce heat, we need fuel, wood, oil, or gas. In the case of the body, the fuels we use are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. To release the energy from the fuel, we need to start the process with a spark. That's the B group vitamins at work. Now, in order for a flame to burn and deliver energy, it needs the oxygen that's in the air around us. No oxygen, no flame, no heat. Our body also uses oxygen for the energy process in our bodies, and it's iron that enables oxygen to get to the cells and make energy production possible. And lastly, we need something to regulate the heat produced by the flames, a thermostat. This one keeps the room at a comfortable temperature. In the body, that's the role of iodine. As part of the hormone thyroxine, its job is to regulate the body's metabolism. We find iodine in foods such as fish and dairy products and vegetables grown in soil high in iodine. So we can see that proteins, fats, and carbohydrates are all vital to the process of producing energy. Not only that, but these processes rely on a whole range of other nutrients to regulate and create this energy. Let's have a look at the way nutrients interact to help with other essential body processes. The basic unit of all life is the cell. After a number of cell divisions, normal cells stop dividing and will eventually die. Because of this, our body constantly creates and replaces cells throughout our entire lifespan. Groups of similar cells form tissues, and these groups of tissues bond together to make organs. Muscle, brain, and blood tissue are called soft tissues. And for obvious reasons, bone, teeth, and cartilage are called hard tissue. Protein is the major nutrient necessary for cell development. Proteins make up around 20% of all our body's cells. When cells divide, new protein molecules have to be made to form the basic structure of each new cell. During digestion, protein is broken down into a variety of amino acids. These are the basic components of protein. In fact, amino acids are often called the building blocks of life. But again, one nutrient, in this case protein, on its own, simply isn't enough. Cells need a range of nutrients to grow and maintain themselves. When it comes to soft tissue growth, water forms an essential part of the cell's nucleus and composition. Lipids are an essential part of the cell's membrane or outer wall. Folate is necessary for cell division and to make deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, which carries our genetic information. Vitamin A is essential for cell division and growth, and vitamin C assists in the healing of wounds. Blood is a type of connective tissue largely made up of water and protein and requires the interaction of a number of nutrients to reproduce and remain healthy. Plasma is the liquid component of blood, 90% of which is water. The cellular portion of blood, which floats in the plasma, contains red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. The red blood cells carry oxygen from the lungs. The white blood cells help to fight infection, and platelets are parts of cells that assist with clotting. However, without the mineral iron, the basic function of blood, which is to transport oxygen to every cell in the body, will not work efficiently because the body is unable to make healthy blood cells in the first place. To make healthy red blood cells, the process requires protein, water, iron, folate, vitamin B12, and vitamin C. Folate and vitamin B12 are needed to make DNA, or the genetic material of the cell, and to ensure the proper formation of red blood cells. Without sufficient folate and vitamin B12, red blood cells may not develop properly, which will interfere with their capacity to carry oxygen. Vitamin C assists in the absorption of iron necessary to make hemoglobin, a vital protein in red blood cells which carries oxygen. Vitamin C is also needed for the development of the walls of the veins and arteries. Hard tissues are our bones, cartilage, and teeth. Cartilage is a dense network of collagen and elastin fibers that form into bone-like shapes. Both bones and teeth form around these structures. Without bones, we'd just be a lumpy mess. When all our bones are put together, we have structure and shape. We can stand, bend over to pick up something, and we can walk. Our skeleton also protects many of our organs. Bone is often thought of as being made up of only hard, dry, brittle substances. But in fact, it is a very dynamic tissue, constantly changing and assisting the body in many ways. Bones are made up of a variety of materials, such as blood cells, nerve cells, fat, protein, calcium, and phosphorus. About 97% of bone protein is made up of collagen, which is the major substance that holds cells together. Collagen is the soft tissue that gives the bone structure. It's into this framework that the minerals calcium and phosphorus are deposited. This process, ossification, causes bones to harden. What this means is that in order to produce hard tissue, such as bone, all the nutrients for soft tissue production are required, as well as minerals, calcium, phosphorus, and vitamins D and A. Vitamin D is needed to promote the absorption of calcium and phosphorus, and to keep the calcium and phosphorus in balance. Vitamin A controls bone cell activity, and as such is essential to enable the bones to lengthen, which is critical during periods of growth. Not only do we need all these nutrients for healthy bones, but we need them for a huge range of functions on a daily basis. Take calcium. Not only is it needed for bones and teeth, it's also needed for normal blood clotting, some enzyme activity, and a number of other functions, such as nerve and muscle functions. Bones act like calcium banks. That is, we deposit calcium in them, but we can also take it out when we need it for these other functions. Our bones' calcium levels need to be topped up every day. Otherwise, calcium deficiencies may lead to poor bone formation and bone weakening conditions, such as osteoporosis. As well as needing calcium every day, other nutrients are also essential for ossification and bone growth. There's so many ways in which we use nutrients in our body. Although we are covering the major processes here, it's important to know that we also need nutrients to interact for the regulation of a range of body processes. Body temperature, acid-base balance, disease prevention, hormonal control, functioning of body systems, control of blood pressure, waste removal, and many more processes also use a variety of nutrients in combination. Although it's a type of carbohydrate, dietary fiber doesn't supply energy, nor is it digested and absorbed in the small intestine like other nutrients. Instead, some of it is broken down in the large intestine. Dietary fiber is the cell wall of plants, the skin and flesh of fruit and vegetables, and the outer covering of grains, such as wheat and rice. It performs a number of important roles in body processes and in the prevention of disease. Foods high in dietary fiber contribute to making us feel full for longer after we've eaten because it causes the stomach to empty more slowly. Fiber also slows down the digestion process. This means that nutrients are absorbed more slowly, which is particularly important for diabetics who need to control their glucose absorption. In the large intestine, water binds with fiber. This helps to soften feces, which makes it easier for them to be excreted from the body. In turn, this reduces pressure on the large intestine that helps to prevent conditions such as constipation, hemorrhoids, and colon cancer. Certain types of fibers, such as those in oats, barley, and legumes, bind with cholesterol. Although it sometimes has a bad reputation, cholesterol is vital to our body, forming part of the structure of every body cell, acting as a building block for some hormones, and being a major component of bile, necessary to aid fat digestion. But some cholesterol can form fatty plaque deposits on the walls of arteries and blood vessels, building up to a narrowing of the arteries, causing cardiovascular disease. After bile acids bind to fiber, they are excreted, causing more cholesterol to be converted to bile acids. This leads to an overall lowering of blood cholesterol levels. The effect may be subtle, but even a small drop in blood cholesterol levels can help protect against heart disease. So how do we know we're getting enough of the nutrients we've just looked at? Well, if you make sure that you eat a wide variety of foods and in the recommended proportions, you'll get all the nutrients you need. But sometimes we need more specific information about nutrients, such as during pregnancy, when dealing with particular illnesses, or wider problems. That's when guidelines, such as the recommended dietary allowances and adequate intake, are very useful. RDAs are set to meet the needs of almost all individuals in a group. The AI represents the mean intake for healthy breastfed infants and is believed to cover the needs of all individuals in other life stage and gender groups where there's not enough data to establish an RDA. Let's look at some examples. When we look at vitamin B3, or niacin, we notice that newborn infants, both boys and girls, require 2 milligrams each day. As they grow into young children, the recommended daily intake for vitamin B3 steadily increases. From the age of 14 years onwards, boys need slightly more vitamin B3 than girls of the same age. In adulthood, men and women require the same amount of vitamin B3 as they did in their late teenage years. However, women, when they're pregnant or lactating, need additional niacin during this time. Not everybody is the same, and most of us need different amounts of nutrients to carry out the same bodily functions. For example, my body may not absorb calcium as well as yours, so I need to consume a bit more of it than you do. So when the health authorities set the RDA for calcium, for example, they took into account people like me who have a greater need than the average. The human body is an amazing thing, able to do so many things under so many different conditions. But because we are complex, our bodies need to do complex things to keep healthy and functioning. When we use nutrients in different combinations to do different jobs, we're maximizing their functions, and that not only makes us complex, but really efficient too. Of course, the key to getting all the nutrients we need is a balanced and healthy diet. If we make sure we get this, that's when we get the most out of life.